think we're ready. I think we are live. Hi, y'all. I know y'all miss me. Welcome to another edition of Samantha Wise Words. This is our 19th episode. Can you believe, Kiana, we made it to 19th episode? And so I just want to tell you guys, welcome back, welcome back. I missed y'all, and I know y'all missed me because I'm just walking around Oakland, minding my own business, and y'all tapping me on my shoulders like, where have you been? We need more information. We need more information. And because you guys have asked, here we are. And so today's episode is about being a Black woman in corporate America. Some people think it's easy to navigate in those waters, but it's not. And there are certain things we're going to share with you today to make sure that your process is easier than what we've experienced in corporate America. So I have some fabulous people here that have started from the bottom and now they're at the top. They are the best in their field, and I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves to you. I'm going to start off to my left.
All right.
Miss Elisa.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you for having us here today.
Thank you for coming.
My name is Elisa Okello Odungo. I work at a local Fortune 500. I work in compliance and am a director at that company. Happy to be here today. Thank you for inviting me.
I can't wait to hear all the things you're going to share about where you are now and where you've come from, and and why you choose to share your experiences with us today. Right?
Yes.
I can't wait to hear all the stories that you're going to share with us. And then to my right, we have Adonica. And I used to always have a problem saying her name. I just used to call her A, but now I think I call her name so much in class. So she's also one of my boot campers, and just kind of like in the midst of us working out and Camp Breathe together, she started to share her story about her employment with me. So I thought she would be very instrumental in this conversation of where she started and where she is today. So go ahead, girl, tell me what you do.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Adonica Ajello. I am an Oakland native, and I work in HR, doing people analytics and workforce planning. I've worked for several large tech companies and a large healthcare provider, and I am just really excited to be here, just to really share my experience and hope that somebody can take away a nugget or some information that can impact them on their career journey.
Guys, hey, she a boss. She's definitely a boss, but you guys have already seen this young lady over here. She thinks she's a boss of me in boot camp and in life, and she's just, I met her when she was a little girl, and I'm sure she didn't know she was going to be where she is today. But I am very excited to bring Kiana back to the Red Sea. We're going to call this the Red Sea, so she can share her experiences with you. So Kiana, let me know what you do.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me. I think this is my third appearance on Sam Wise Words, so happy to be here. I'm Kiana. Let's see. I'm also an Oakland native, and I've been in recruiting for 7 years now. I am a recruiting manager in the diversity space at a large social media company. Super excited to be here and have a discussion with everybody.
So the reason why we thought this discussion would be important is because people of color, Black women, seem to face a lot of adversities in corporate America. Trying to get ahead, trying to get promotions, trying to be recognized for all the things that we do. So a lot of us have degrees, a lot of us are experienced in the things that we do at work. However, it's like we're not being seen. We're not being compensated accordingly like everybody else in our company. So they have done research saying that, yes, we are always the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to pay. How do we know we're at the bottom of the totem pole? Because a lot of times the information, the pay is not readily available for us, or we don't even know where to get the stuff from. So having an opportunity to get into corporate America, what would you guys say would be the first thing that we need to do? So if I'm applying to a Fortune 500 company, what do you think is the first thing that I should do? And I'm going to pose this question to you, trying to get into this company.
So the first thing I would do is think about what kind of position do you want to go into? And what are the areas in which you can network to meet people that might be in that particular area of expertise. And so networking, I think, is critical. I like to think that every interaction is a mini interview. So even if you're not necessarily interviewing for that position, when you're talking to somebody, whether you're at some kind of mixer or an industry conference or whatever it may be, that every interaction is an interview. So somebody might remember you, remember the value that you talked about that you bring in your current position, and then tell you about some jobs that might be available. I think the other thing to think about is, we have access to Google now. And so looking online and seeing, whether it's on salary.com or Glassdoor, what are the going rates for the jobs that you're interested in?
So salary.com, you can just go in there and what do you put the job title in there?
You could put the job title in there. You could put the type of industry. So, I work in compliance. So you could put in there just compliance. It'll pull up some jobs and then you can go from there. I think the other thing that I would do is look online and see what are the different job descriptions online and does that seem of interest to you? And then looking at those job titles and then putting that into salary.com and Glassdoor. But I think the networking is the key. And then also thinking about how you're going to network and talk to people about the skills you might have to be a good fit for that position.
Okay, so thank you for that. And so, Kiana, you being a lead recruiter at this big company that you're in, what are the first things that you look at being a recruiter? What do you think are important items that people should have on their resume? Because I know a lot of times that there's like a computerized system. So you go online and you apply for these jobs. So it's no longer faxing, because when I was getting jobs, I was faxing. Yeah, that was that long ago. We were faxing, or sometimes mailing, or you just be like, I just faxed y'all my resume. I think the company that I'm with now, I think I faxed them like 18 times. And every time I would call this, they would be like, your name seems familiar. Yeah, because I faxed y'all 18 times. But what would you say? Okay, so I'm trying to get a job, and I'm going online, and I'm applying for the job. And I know there's a computerized system that kind of weeds stuff. You can tell me a little bit about that. So what happens?
Yeah, so to talk about some of the major things to highlight, a lot of times people, when they create resumes, they'll copy their job description right onto the resume and just really cookie cutter job, almost like a job description in your actual resume, when really your resume is meant to show how unique you are or what contributions you've actually made in your role. So instead of just listing off your job duties, really list off the impact that you've been able to make, processes that you've been able to improve. If there's some kind of metrics or numbers that you're supposed to hit, highlighting times where you went above and beyond those metrics. So specific, unique things that you've actually done rather than just a generic list of job duties. That's one reason. That's one way to actually separate yourself from just this exact person that did your exact same job. You separate them by talking about the unique things, the unique impact that you've been able to make in this particular role.
So if this said I increased budget, or not increased rate, but increased revenue into the company, I should note that on there. But that's not being, and she thinks she all that. That wouldn't be considered oh, she thinks she all that.
It would be, but you want to be considered oh, she thinks she all that. You increase revenue by 60%, giving specific data is a way to separate yourself, where people are just saying, oh, I'm a quick learner, fat, I work, hard, or something like that, where you're saying I increased revenue by 60%. Yeah, she thinks she all that. You want to highlight that.
It actually sounds like she read my resume. I'm a quick learner. I'm detail oriented.
That's all generic. That's generic.
Okay, so but yeah, I'm about to do other stuff, so I may not need another resume. But you just never know. So, Adamika, with what they have to say, Elisa and Kiana have to say, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yes.
Okay.
Kiana brought up the resume. Your resume is supposed to highlight, sometimes they'll call accomplishments. So when you're saying hey, you may want to open up to give your overview of your role description, but then it's always say, so what? So what? Why should I hire you? And then that can be a leading question, especially being with the actual specific numbers. So say, for instance, I'm doing filing. Well, maybe you actually can actually put on your resume how many groups or departments that you do filing for. Maybe you can say, in addition to managing these other 5 processes, and then describing that. So it's like, hey, rather than say, oh, I'm a multitasker, you actually show like what you're multitasking. These are the things that I've accomplished being a multitasker. Or these are the things that I've accomplished being a quick learner. The other point that Alicia brought up about the pay, most companies you can ask, especially if you're in the company, and then sometimes even when you're being recruited for a company, some people will give it, but it's this thing called your comp ratio. So for your particular job, and comp ratio, I'll say that again, but for a particular job, it will actually tell you what is your, where do you fall in the pay band. So in every job, they have a minimum that they want to pay, and they have a maximum, and then you have a midpoint. The comp ratio will tell you where do you fall on that scale. So if you are highly skilled, you want to make sure that you are being paid above the midpoint. So that means your comp ratio should be 1 or greater. And so that's like saying I have so many years of experience, I should be above the midpoint, meaning I should be on the high end of the pay scale.
So say, for instance, you've been asking your employer for that information and they're not readily available, or they're not willing to give you that information. How do you prepare, or what do you do after that point?
So 2 things you can do. There are other tools that you mentioned, like going on Google. There's one with Robert and Half, which has a very robust database to actually tell you like what people in your role are getting paid, and also too by where your location is. Because all jobs they pay different depending on where. The same job can pay a different amount depending on where you live. And then if you're still not getting that information from your employer, I encourage people to be their own advocate and to really open up an ERC, or employee relations case, because that's something that an employer is supposed to provide. They have to provide them.
So is that really the law? Is that like a law?
It's part of most of the time an employee handbook, like your employee handbook. That's information that they're supposed to give to you.
Okay. So I make it through the hiring process. I get through. So they pick me and they call me and say, Sam, we want to interview you. You meet all the minimum requirements. What happens next? Kiana?
We want to interview you. Okay. So typically you want to set a date, right? Most of us rush thinking that we have to interview as soon as possible, when really this is your time to like strategize. If you have to think about a few things. Have you been interviewing? If you haven't, you probably want to give yourself enough time to be able to like properly prepare. So depending on how many interviews or like the type of interviews, you need to give yourself enough time to be able to properly prepare and give that person that's offering you an interview a correct timeline for you to be able to set yourself up for success. So it may not be rushing to interview the next week. It might be interviewing in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Then that way you've had enough time to fully prepare, make sure you're good to go. So starting there is first giving yourself a realistic timeline of when you're actually able to prepare and interview.
Okay, so I know you're an advocate about researching the company. So I'm getting into the interview and I'm getting there, and I haven't researched the company that I'm working for. And I remember, I believe I could have been talking to you. I was talking to somebody else, and it could have been you. And you were like, you need to know everything about that department. You need to be able to tell them how many employees they have. You need to be telling them what their goals are, so on and so forth. So you want to share a little bit about what you think people should bring to the table when they're interviewing? Because I know you've had your share of interviewing, and I know your whole department you got a new department.
Yes.
And you handpick those people for your department. We're gonna go into that a little later.
We interviewed.
No, but I'm just saying,
Yes.
you had your hand in it because you wanted to make sure that they were a right fit,
Exactly.
and they aligned with the goals for your organization. So coming to the table or coming to interview with you, what kind of things do you look at from an applicant?
Yeah, great question. So one of them is what you just mentioned. So somebody who's done a little bit of research. Typically, if I ask a question about, typically I'll give an example of something that's happening within our work group, and ask the applicant how they might handle that. Well, if they don't know what we do, they're not going to be able to answer that. So somebody that can articulate that they've looked at the company, looked at if they're already at the company, looked at the department, and thought about how they are going to bring value, that is huge. I think the other thing to think about is going back to the resume, talking about what accomplishments you have from previous positions and how that applies to the job that you're applying for. So how can you show that when you start that job on day one, you're going to be bringing value to that team? So those are some of the things that I look for when I'm interviewing. I'm also looking for, I'm a big stickler for detail. So I will look at the resume and see, are there any mistakes, spelling errors, formatting, I look at that. And then also, how do they craft their story in the resume? So is the person intentional about the job that they're applying for? Are they just applying for a whole bunch of jobs and, this is
the
just
same resume.
Exactly. So, and that's a good point also, thinking about what is the job that you're applying for and catering your resume and the skills and the accomplishments that you have to the job that you're applying for. Takes a little bit more work, but recruiters and the hiring managers do recognize that.
Well, speaking from the recruiting process, I'm gonna go back to Kiana real quick. So when you looking at the resumes, so say for instance, how many job experience should you list? Because I got like 18. Not for real, but I'm just saying it's 3, it is like a year long, or how many should we actually put on a resume?
So typically I'll probably go back 10 to 15 years, but you really just want to know, like, you really want to show, like, want your resume to tell a story. So like, if you are like at 10, prior to 10 years was doing something like totally different, it might not be like relevant to put on to your resume. Like sometimes people will have resumes and they want to list every single thing that they did, times where they had 2 jobs, and they think it's a way to like show I'm a hard worker, or like I could do a lot, but it shows kind of you're scattered, you're kind of a little bit all over the place. So you want to make sure that your resume really tells a story. So if that story is choosing like what you've done over the last 10 to 15 years that applies to the role that you're applying for, then you might want to take out some of those other things that you've done that is really not relevant.
Not relevant to that position. And okay, now this one will be for you. So an elevator speech. I hear that elevator speeches are very important. What is an elevator speech?
So I use this term with like executives or people in leadership. They have attention deficit disorder. So just imagine the person cannot focus past 2 minutes. So your elevator pitch is, they use that term, assuming you're on the elevator with the executive. By the time you want to get to the floor, you have to sell them on why somebody should hire you. And I always tell people, it's always be unique to you, something that's unique to you. And it doesn't mean there's not other people out there that can also do the exact same thing that's unique to you, but that's the way that you want to sell them. And for me, my elevator pitch, it depends on who I'm talking to, but if I'm looking to like get a role where I'm like maybe using a different, I'm learning some type of new technology or new type of tool, my pitch is telling them about my story on how I am a self-learner and how I picked up things quickly, and then giving them an example. Like I worked at this company, and within the first 3 months, I self-taught myself this, and this is how I used it, and this is the impact that I made with that. And so that's how I would tell my elevator pitch in that situation. If I'm talking to like a leader within a department, and my challenge ahead is I need to learn a new tool, a new platform. So that would be my elevator pitch.
And you don't have to necessarily be on the elevator, y'all. We're just saying that's how quick you should be able to tell somebody everything that you do. By the time it goes from the first floor to the 15th floor, you should be able to tell somebody exactly what you want, exactly what you need, and exactly what you're able to offer them. And so technically you're on an elevator, and you know how quickly an elevator moves. So that's how you need to be versed on being able to approach someone you're trying to get something from. It doesn't have to even be work. It could be hanging out at a function, at a networking event. But as she said, you can use all these interactions, whether you're at lunch, whether you're at dinner, whether you're at a party, as opportunities for to networking. I mean, you can get jobs through that. Because people, like you said, they remember exactly what you said and how you said it and how efficiently you were being able to say it. So we make it past the interview process.
Can I say one thing on that?
Yeah, of course.
So in terms of the elevator pitch, you want to practice it.
Yep.
Because that's lobby to the 15th floor, it's quick. And if you don't practice, you might be rambling for the first, 30 seconds. And then you're trying to get everything in that last 15. So it's important to practice that up front. Think about, what do you want to leave this person with? And practice with other people. Practice on an elevator, practice as you're walking to the car, whatever the case may be. But you don't want to have the time you're practicing with the person you want to get involved.
Right. That's Okay, well, thank you for that information. Okay, so we make it. They calling me. They got recruiting calling me. They got the HR department calling me. They said they want me, and they offer me a salary. I'm like, I don't know. So I call people. I call the husband and be like, "Hey, this is what they offer." He's like, "Nah, baby, you got from home. You work from home." How do you? You said go to careers.com and all that, but how do you effectively, because you just did this, how did you ask for more money? Or how did you counter what they offered you?
First rule I always tell people, as women, as well as women of color and Black women going down, we don't negotiate. The first rule is I never accept the first offer. It's always negotiate. In the negotiation, I try to tell people use the same thing if you were bargaining, like maybe at a flea market or with someone in your relationship. What are some of the tools or the things that you're thinking in your mind? Well, how do I sell and convince this person to see my point of view? And so I always start with, based off my skills and capability and my years of experience in such, and actually having an impact of doing X, Y, and Z. This is what I believe, and I don't want to say this is what I believe. I would say I would like X amount plus this, whether it's base pay or whether you're asking for your bonus or even asking for a sign-on. You just list it out. But if you have those things on your resume, you have those accomplishments, lean in, because that negotiation period is the time to get your money to secure the bag. Because sometimes it's difficult once you're in the company to get that big increase. So that's just my approach to it. And it is scary. It's going to feel awkward. But then I just say when that money hits that bank account, it doesn't feel awkward. So that's what I tell people, focus on that.
Because I would think like, I'm not as aggressive, because I'd be like, okay, well, that is more than what I'm making. And so we tend to accept that offer because it's more than what we're making. And so Keon, would you feel empowered? Why should you think like a Black woman should be empowered to go in there and ask for more?
Well, I always recommend to zoom out a little bit first. Like when we really understand who we are, not just as like people, but just like the skill set and where you fall into the company, we got to do a little bit more research. So once you figure out when you think about the corporate structure and where does your role fall in, like the work that you do, where does that fall in first? It's a lot of times in different industries, we are in like a revenue generating role, or might be in an operational role, and like wherever you fall in, it kind of determines like what kind of money the company has to really support your role. It's like if you're in healthcare and you're like working in that primary role that generates revenue, then you're going to be highly compensated. So if you're in the tech industry and you're an engineer or work in some type of technical role, you're generating revenue for that company. So once you understand like where you fall into that particular industry and that company, then you go, okay, now I see what I'm playing with. Then okay, like I'm highly compensated in this particular industry. Then you need to do a little bit more research around what are they paying people like me in this particular industry. And then once you understand that, then you can zoom in and go, all right, okay, what does the company offer? Do they offer base, equity, bonus? Do they offer, then you need to understand what do they offer people like me? I understand the range. Now I need to know like what does the actual compensation, what is it composed of? So once you know all this stuff, then you're kind of building a case for yourself to go back and go, all right, this is what I add. This is what you offer. Here's where I'll be happy. This is a happy medium of what it would take for me to join the company. So I think a lot of times we'll just go in and go, this is a number in my head that I feel comfortable accepting, but like, where did that number even come from? did we even do research
Right,
to
right,
like
right.
for our industry, for the market, for the location? Like where did that come from? Was that a number that you just had in your head?
Right,
It
right.
might not make sense. So there's a lot of different layers, but it kind of starts with one, understanding where you fall in, what the company is paying, then you kind of tackle what makes sense based on your years of experience and your contributions.
Being that you're on the other side, okay, so you're on the other side of the table and I'm here trying to negotiate with you about my pay. Do you actually have a number that you're able to stick with and then you be like, oh, let me just offer this and see if they take it?
Yeah, it's always gonna be like a standard offer is what we like
So
to call
it's a
it.
standard offer,
It's a
and you should
standard.
always assume that it's a standard offer, and always, like you said, be an advocate for yourself, but I'll also come in with facts.
Mhm.
You know, doing the research and understanding, like you said, what your worth is, so on
Yeah.
and so forth. So always, y'all hear that what she said, y'all. They offer you that money, you make sure you do your research and understand what you're worth. And if you can bring more to the company and you can help them generate more money for the company, then you're an asset to that company. Well, you should consider yourself as being an asset. So do you agree with that approach? Do you?
Yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
okay. So I just wanted to make sure.
So
So,
I'll say, when I first started out, I remember the first job that I applied for, and I was just happy to have a job
Mhm.
and health insurance.
Thank you.
I was like, oh,
Right.
you offering health? Great,
Yeah.
I'm in here. And then I found out about a year in that the person that was the same level as me was making much more than I was. And it was a real lesson learned because I thought, I have a salary, this is great. And I should just be happy that somebody's offering me a job with healthcare,
Right,
and
right.
all this other benefits. And so, and when I went to another job, same thing happened to me. They offered me a salary. It was significantly more than what I was making, but it was still less than what other people were making. And so it's hard to, really come back and say, hey, I think that I'm worth X, Y, and Z based on the research that I've done. If it's something that's out of your comfort zone.
Right.
And so, but it's necessary to do that research and make sure that you're getting your value.
And see, people don't tell us that.
Mhm.
You know?
Nobody has ever said this to me.
Yeah.
Like, you're worth all of this. This is what you need to do. Here are these tools that are available so that you can maximize, exactly what you want from your company. And people, why didn't we share that information? It's because the people that look like us didn't know, or they didn't feel qualified to tell them. What do you guys think?
I've actually been talking about this to a lot of my friends lately. It's because, in our situation, a lot of us are first generation, whatever the situation we're in. First generation college grads, first generation professional that have made it to a certain level. And a lot of times, as Black people, we keep things secretive. And one of the things we keep secretive is the finances.
Yep.
You don't ask, you don't share. Like, that's just not a thing that we're transparent about. So if you think about it, you're keeping this secret from like your family, your friends, and the people that you trust. And then you don't really have as much of a community of people to help you set yourself up for success when you're going into the corporate environment. So who are you bouncing these ideas off of? And that's why I said, what is the data? Where are you getting this number from? You're accepting jobs, accepting salary, and you really don't have a trusted partner or somebody or data or something that you're going off of to make sure that you are being compensated fairly. And so a lot of times I think it's just us going in blind and accepting like this arbitrary number that we think is like okay, but really if we stepping into zones that we've never been in before, then the money, like we need to make sure that the money is meeting, like that same level of expectations. So.
And so I'm glad we're having this discussion because what happens is the people that are on the other side of the screen are like, I gotta know I can be, I can go and do all these things and be able to come. Here are my number, here are my facts, this is what I've done to be able to have a conversation with your supervisor and say, these are the attributes that I've done. This is what I'm worth. This is why I think I should, because I think we get into those conversations and we just sit there. Well, I did foul. I did, but you didn't keep records. So I started keeping a log of everything that I did. So all the special projects that I started doing, I started keeping a tab on them. And so when it came time for my review, I printed that document out, or I was doing a lot of different other things with departments that wasn't even mine, you know. And I was starting to keep that when I was able, like, oh yeah, I forgot you did that. Because it's on us to advocate for ourselves. And like, they busy, and you said their attention span is here.
Sure.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Because
So,
they're juggling so much.
and so that's where the transparency comes from, and the pay, and the career trajectory. So what do you mean? What do you mean by that?
So just being transparent about pay and career trajectory. I think a lot of times when we make decisions in the Black community, it's not always based on like research that you've been able to do, or like actual people that you know from those companies or industries where you're able to go, okay, I actually have someone that I know in this career path, and I know if I set myself up to be in this position today, in 5, 10, 15 years down the line, here's where I'll be able to be. I don't think a lot of times we're like making decisions based off of like, what kind of research have you done for the next 15 to 20 years? We're kind of looking at like today, and not really taking a step back and going, this is what the direction the world is going in. In 15 to 20 years, this is the type of skill set that I'll need to acquire in order to be able to be at this position, that far down the line. I don't think that transparency, one, is not always accessible because maybe we don't know the people that are in those career paths, but then maybe we're not curious to go and figure out, okay, if I want to be in this position 20 years from now, what are the steps that I need to take every year, every 5 years, every 10 years to be able to get there? So I don't know.
But that's where the allies come from, so you get into the company. So let's go back. So I accepted the position. I got hired, I took the money, I came in there, and I told you, I was like, this is what I'm worth, and I want this amount of money. I put it on a piece of paper and I slid it to you, whatever. And you was like, okay, well, welcome to the company. And I'm gonna get I get a stock bonus, I got health care, I got tuition reimbursement, I got child care. I have everything that I asked for because I was prepared when I went into to HR and recruiting, so on and so forth. So I made it into the company. I got my name tag, I have my land ID, I have all this special employee identification information. So I'm in there. What do I do when I'm in there? I'm gonna do my job because I'm qualified to do the job. But now there's a culture being in corporate America. Now there's this culture I have to navigate. So now I'm in the field. This is foreign to me. Because now it looks like I'm the only person that looked like me in this field, because now I moved up. I came from the Oakland Tribune. Everybody was Black at the Oakland Tribune. And so when I moved into corporate America from there, and I was the only person of color in my organization or my department, it felt a little different. They didn't make me feel different, but when you started to look around, when I stopped and looked around, I was the one that was different. And it didn't make me feel away until somebody else brought it to my attention. I'm just trying to be careful with what I say. So it wasn't the supervisors or the people higher up that made me feel different. It could have been my cubicle mate. They would say certain things that, what they call it, unconscious bias. Is that what that is? You want to explain what unconscious bias is?
Well, unconscious bias is basically you are not conscious of it, but it may be through your programming, through your upbringing, your childhood, that you would say statements or do actions or behavior that shows a bias to either a particular demographic group. Typically, it's always ethnicity, or it's a common thing is ethnicity and then gender in the workplace. So,
give me an example.
An example could be there is a hip hop song that comes on. I've always experienced this. Oh, do you know how to do this dance? You know how to do this dance for this song? And it's just like, because I'm Black, you, in front of everybody, you ask, oh, show me the dance for this song. And it's like, I have actually never heard this song before.
Right.
I listen to country music. Have you ever asked me what type of music I listen to? But no, so that's an unconscious bias, assuming that because I am Black, that I must know every latest dance that's coming out.
Okay. So have you dealt with something like similar to that? Like, I know you know, never mind. Go ahead, Kiana. No. Go ahead, Keith.
Wait, what was the question?
About the unconscious bias. Has anyone ever said anything to you that was relative to your color? Yeah, it kind of rubs you the wrong way, or had you like, why would you say that to me?
Yeah, so many things, and I think it's a new term for it called microaggression.
Yeah. And that's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So it's happened a lot actually, and I think in the past, maybe like when I was younger, I don't think I as paid attention to it as much. I just kind of like adapted to that kind of environment of what now I would consider a hostile environment. But I used to just adapt to it and move forward. And I think more recently, just as I've grown as a professional and a person, I've started to call it out whenever it happens. Call out those different scenarios, and it happens all the time. And sometimes I don't even recognize it.
Like I said, somebody else
might even be like, "Oh, that made me feel uncomfortable when you said that to Kiana." Like I've had that happen,
seriously.
and I go,
No, because a lot of times we're used to it happening, and so it doesn't bother us. But now that people are looking around, it's like, wait a minute, that ain't cool.
Yeah.
And why did you say that to her?
Yeah.
And you never said that to me. We did the same exact thing, but she's a person of color.
Yeah.
And so you call, like you said, the rap music thing. You didn't ask Tommy down the hall, did he know how to do the electric slide?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? So I mean, it's just hard. And like, me, I'm an older corporate employee, so I just learned, like, put your head down, get your work done, don't cause too much fuss. And I used to come home and tell my grandparents, like, certain stuff happened. I used to go, I don't bust her tail. And my grandma would be like, just, you home now, so you didn't make it through the day. But that's not the way it should be, because I'm equal. I'm equal to everybody else. And I know there's a lot of times that we don't say stuff, so that means it keeps happening.
Yeah.
For me, it was like, why your skirt so tight? Because my shape is different than yours. We can have the same skirt on. My shape is different than yours. Or why's your hair like that? It was just in a ponytail yesterday, this little, and then today you come in here and it's down here.
Yeah.
And so those kind of conversations, after a while, I did it for the first some years because I considered these people to be my friends. So I didn't have a problem with trying to educate them on Black hair, the way we do things as a culture. But I think a lot of times, a lot of people in corporate, if they're not raised around Black people or whatever, they only go by what they see on the news or what they see in the movies and stuff like that. And we're more than what people allow you to see. So the hair thing, that would irritate my soul. Don't touch it. For me, it was okay. But then I found out in my office, it bothered another Black woman. Like, you shouldn't have to be the person that educates them.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be able to say that. So if it was just me and them, I'd be like, okay, it's cool. But like you said, in a room full of people, it doesn't sit well. So with you, did you ever have that happen before?
Yes, I
just did it to you just now.
That's a very common thing that happened a lot early in my career because I would change my hair often. I had a lot more time on my hands, so I'm also braider, so sometimes I'll come in with braids, and the next day I would come in with extension, and the next day I'm coming in, or next month or whatever, coming in with my natural hair. But for a while, it was even coming with the natural hair. I feel more comfortable now, but I am very adamant, and I will speak up. It's like, no. If I see somebody coming in, I will do the back bend. Don't touch. You can ask me questions, and if I feel like answering it, I'll answer them. But it was talking with Elisa earlier, and we were talking about Sam. Now you're saying you're in the role. What do you do? Lisa brought up a good point about what is that? The allies and the sponsors or the mentors. I didn't want to say what you said, but I really wanted to share a point because that's also important. Like once you get in the job, what do you do then?
Okay. Yeah. So what we're talking about is having a tribe. Really, you want to think about who are your allies at work, who are your mentors, who are your sponsors. And so when I think about the allies, who are your peers or people that you work with on a regular basis that are going to have your back. you know, like that are gonna say the same, say, hey, that wasn't cool that, you said that to, Kiana or Sam or, whoever. People that are going to, let you know if somebody's talking about you. They were in another room, they were in a meeting, and somebody was saying something, and so like you may just want to, watch out for that. And then I think from a mentorship standpoint, who's either been at the company or who's been in that industry or who's been in the workforce longer that you can go to when you have questions. How do I handle this? This is something that's happening, with my peers or with my supervisor, and and just bouncing ideas off that person. And then when I think of a sponsor is somebody that is going to help you get to where you need to be. Somebody that is going to advocate for you, whether you're in the room or outside of the room.
Yeah.
And so, so thinking about, who are those people in your life, in your company, in your industry that you can go to for this.
So, okay, so we all have different hairstyles,
Yes.
right? Which is great because we couldn't always do this. And I was watching Channel 7 News this morning, and I was watching Kumasi and Jovina. So Kumasi has a haircut like yours. She's happy. She's a beautiful, like y'all cute alike. And then Jovina has, I don't know if she's dreading out, but her hair is naturally long, and she flat irons it sometimes. But I saw the progression, which means we, as Black women, are being more comfortable with their hair. Is it because they passed a law, which is crazy that they have to pass a law to say you can't discriminate against someone because of their hair? So do you think in the corporate world now it's more acceptable without somebody side-eyeing you now because we're in 2021? That just happened. It wasn't like 3 years ago it was available. I mean, we didn't feel it. So what do you think about that?
I think corporate has changed all around. Like our idea, literally in the last 10 years or 7 to 10 years or something like that, where if you think about just corporate and the top companies, that whole list has shifted, right? Like the whole list of the companies that are thriving, like the corporate structure, and what we look at, when we look at just the typical corporate employee, it's totally different. I say that because I don't really know the list of the top companies, but I would imagine most of it is big tech, right? Big tech, obviously still healthcare, but most of the top companies right now that are leading have shifted what we look at when we look at the corporate structure. We used to look at you had to be, in a collared shirt. Women had to be in a skirt. Guy had to be in a blue or black, suit, and just very traditional company. Now, the corporate structure has shifted to more of a flat layout where most people are coming casual. A lot of times, the title is not always hierarchy. It's a just more of a different corporate environment. And so I think with that, one, it already has shifted in itself. And then to add that extra layer of how we show up as Black women, I think there's been a lot more visibility around us being able to come to work as who we are. And a lot of us standing our ground, and companies saying in order to be at the top, of do people feel good about who they are? are people feeling good about their role? Do people, want to stay? In order for them to stay competitive and attract top talent, looking at, okay, what is the market doing right now? And I think a lot of companies are feeling in order to stay competitive, people have to feel like they can bring them whole selves to work. And so with that said, yes, I'm seeing a lot more of us feeling like we can come as who we are, as well as other nationalities too, feeling Muslim women can come with their hijab, and so I'm just starting to see a shift altogether,
Which is good.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah. So that's a good thing. So, and when you say just, feeling comfortable coming as you are, you gotta, you don't want to just come as you are, because we have various hats. The way I talk to my girlfriends at home without corporate, I don't talk like that at work. So I'm very professional at work. I may catch somebody in the closet and we may say, hey girl, I see you, kind of thing. But when I'm at work, it's very corporate. So we don't want to just bring who we are, the other girl in. We want to bring it's still who you are, but you gotta put on that different hat. You gotta put on that corporate hat while you're in corporate. Because I think on my voicemail, people be like, is that you on your voicemail? Yeah, that's me. I practice. Hi, this is Samantha Wise. I mean, versus me saying, hi, this is Sam. I mean, there's a different person that needs to be presented in corporate. I don't want to put that other hat, the tip top shape Sam, in the corporate, because I'm loud and I'm still loud at work, but I'm just I'm kind of bossy when it comes to boot camp. And at work, I'm still bossy, damn. But maybe my tone changes a little bit, but it's still professional. But there's another hat that I have to put on when I'm in the corporate world. I walk a little different. I put my shoes on. I'm there to give them 110% of who I am. So don't just go into these places and not willing to give your all, because even God says you have to give, like you're giving them to him. So when I go to work, I want to give my job everything that I have, but I don't want them to be able to say Sam half-stepped. Sam didn't do something, because that's what people are looking for me to half-step or not give them my full who I am. So we do have a question, and maybe you guys can. Any thoughts about women in their late 30s or 40s that are considering career change because the career they've been in no longer speaks to them? How could one successfully make the pivot as it relates to career search, resume, networking to build relationships in the prospective field? I had a conversation with a sister about this today. So she wants to change her career.
Well, I would say one thing is, to Kiana's point too, is the research. So depending on what your area of interest, I would begin by doing research and looking at just a job description and say what are like some of the key things in the qualifications. Now there are a lot of certificates online that enable people to do the pivot, because, and Kiana can attest, and I'm pretty sure even for you, is that the profile of what they're looking for, the skill set, there's a shift. And especially just working in tech, they're looking for more people who are analytical. So they're open to taking, because it's a shortage, to taking people from non-traditional backgrounds. And then I'll also say that's part of your story, to say, hey, I do come from this non-traditional background, but I was able to make the pivot, and then sell them on how you make that transformation and pivot, and then talk about, based off my past experience, this is what I think is transferable and why I think I'll be successful at this role and why you should give me the opportunity. Again, it's always selling and being authentic to your story, but how do you elevate and amplify your story so that they can believe in you? But you definitely have to do the research and also to believe in yourself. The other thing is, whatever the field, start looking at conferences. If you don't know, to go and network. Volunteering, exactly. And then even looking for groups. Like I'm part of this one group, Coalition of Black Excellence, and they have this annual event. And it's a perfect opportunity to go there and network. They bring everything to you as a one-stop shop for you to connect.
Okay, so I went through the resume process. I got hired. I was able to get more money than I thought I could ever get. I'm in here. I'm navigating. I'm understanding that the hair thing may be an issue for some, but it's no longer an issue for me, because I'm just going to be my authentic self going in here. I'm giving my company everything that I have, everything that I said I was going to give them. When I interview, I'm giving it plus more. And what I'm doing now, I'm connecting with people. Like you said, I want to connect with people where I want to be, like you said, in 10 years. So if I'm starting off at the bottom in 10 years, I want to be the director. Or 15 years, I want to be the director. And so I want to connect and have meetings with people, asking them would they be my mentor. And so I want to put that on their calendar. And most people, when you ask them, can you mentor me? They're like, some people are honored. But they see it, they understand that it took a lot for you to even ask them to mentor you. And so, okay, I'll do it. But just make sure that when you're doing it, you get everything you need to get out of it. So being where you started from and where you are now. So now you're leading a department. And you said representation matters. What does that mean? I mean, because I know you had to build a whole department. And so you wanted to make sure that people in your organization kind of reflect what the community that your company was serving. So what does that mean? Representation matters.
Yeah. So great question. When I first started out and was looking at the hierarchy within my organization, nobody in my line of progression look like. And I didn't know people that had, you know, a director title, an EP title, or if I did, it was very few. And so that just, it never crossed my mind that I can be at that particular level. And I did have one of my leaders at one point said, you know, I see you going places here, you know, and I didn't believe it at the time. But I think that what is important is when people tell you that you're like, oh, okay, well, like maybe there's
They see something I don't see
exactly,
it.
yeah. And so fast forward to where I am now, I think about the team that I've built, and there's been comments about, you know, wow, I don't think I've ever been on a team this diverse. I've never worked for a Black woman before, you know, like, so and it's not, you know, people aren't saying it as good or bad, but they're reflecting on the fact that, like, oh, this is possible.
Right, and so I asked you this before, so did you celebrate that, or did you like, why would you say that? I mean, how did you take that comment?
And I think a lot of it's tone, right?
Right.
You know, somebody saying like, ooh, I'm working for a Black woman.
Right.
You're
right.
You know, like, oh, wow,
yeah.
you know, I haven't worked for a Black woman before. And the person that said that, I don't think they had any malintent. They were really like, wow, this is different,
Right.
you know? And so I take pride in that because, you know, like, you know, they wanted to work on the team. But also I think, you know, I want to normalize that, you know? You're working for a Black woman. This shouldn't be something where people are saying, wow, I've never had this before. So, you know, and my thought is also like, tell a friend.
Right. We popping in this department. Look, I don't know about y'all department, but we popping over here.
Yeah.
Because it's looking like the world. You know, it's
Exactly.
diverse, and I think we need to have diversity in these companies, because how are you gonna have a company that's gonna represent the community if everybody inside doesn't represent the community? And I think that's what happened with a lot of companies. People are insensitive because they're always dealing with people that just look like them. And so they don't have any experience with dealing. But how are you gonna tell a customer, you know, that you've never met before, that you don't have any relationship before, you don't have any compassion for, you know, how to do X, Y, and Z? I don't know. How would you do that? Because I know with her, and I'm proud of you, so I appreciate it. I know where you started. I know where you are today. You have always been an example to me. You've always been one of the people I can go and be like, girl, she about to get it. And she would always be able to calm me down. But like I said, I wouldn't go to anybody else. I had to go to somebody I trusted. And I would go to her and be like, and she'd be like, it's okay, because you know, you bombed. So she would reinforce what I already knew, but sometimes you get in those situations and you start to second guess yourself, because like I said, being the only person of color, you start to think like, is there something wrong with me? And there's really nothing wrong with me. I just think a lot of people are not, they haven't been around people of color enough. So all those microaggressions and all that stuff start to come out. And after some point, if you pay a lot of attention to it, it can weigh heavily on you, and you start to second guess who you are and what your capabilities and stuff are, you know. So I don't know if you guys want to, you know, piggyback off what she said, or
Yeah. And so I'm actually been experiencing, I think, over the last couple of years, what they call imposter syndrome. And it's basically, you know, just feeling like I'm not like worthy enough, or I don't have the skill set, or I'm not like doing enough. And that's just kind of how I am just in general, naturally, like always like, okay, I could be doing better, or I did this and people were congratulating me, but I should have done it this way. I'm always like overanalyzing. So in work, it's even like that thought process is amplified. And so, so I'm actually like struggling with some relationships at work where there's things being said and I'm like already feeling imposter syndrome. And then it's like affecting the way I deal with whatever the things that are being said. That's not necessarily
so
true,
you get
but
into your head.
it's just getting into my head, right? And so, so to go back into like those allies and those trusted partners, I let a couple weeks go by and without like saying what I was actually feeling, that feeling of like,
So you have to sleep
I'm not
on
doing
it,
that
and it's
enough.
in your spirit.
Well, I was letting it get to me. I was
Yeah.
just holding it in, going like, oh, I'm in this position, I'm in this role, and I'm not really feeling like I'm doing enough. And I let it get to me for a couple weeks without saying saying something. And one day I just go, somebody says something about feedback, and I go, I'm just gonna tell them how I feel. And so like back to those trusted people that I felt safe. And that's why it's important to find those people that you feel safe. And it doesn't always mean that that person has to be another Black person. Yes, it's great if they are, but even if they're not, you know, you can find trusted partners, allies, and other races, just making sure that they understand like who you are, what your intentions are, and what do you want to accomplish. If you and creating a safe space where you can go, okay, like something felt weird, I'm gonna bounce this off of you. Like, what do you think in terms of like this happened, this how it made me feel? Like, what are your thoughts? Somebody that you can kind of go and bounce those ideas off of. So long story short, I was feeling that way recently and was able to talk to some trusted people that I felt safe, that are actually higher up, that have like willpower to go and knock those people off that was making me feel a certain way. They go, no, like, listen, you are doing exactly what you should be doing, and even better. You wouldn't be in this position, you wouldn't be in this space if we didn't have that confidence to know that, like, you got this. So, you know, I took the weekend to kind of think about it and was like, you know what? All of what I've done throughout my career has prepared me for like this moment right now. And so I'm not gonna let like so and so try to come and like knock me off my game, right? And so like, you know, just like I said, being transparent about my feelings and not just like holding it in is kind of what like fostered that like safe space for me to talk through like all the things that I was feeling. And just be able to be like, yeah, I was tripping. Like, I need to brush it off. Like, I'm moving on. Whatever she was talking about, that don't matter. Like, I'm here because I'm supposed to be here.
I like the trusted part because I used to support one of the guys high up in the company. And I was having issues with people that were on my floor. And so I brought it to him and I was like, these ladies gonna leave. I didn't say it like that, but I was just like, I'm having difficulties navigating and whatever. And he sat me down. He's like, I'm gonna talk to you. And he was an Asian man, Korean man. And he sat down. He said, I want you to fight back, but I want you to fight back with grace. Don't let them think that they got you. Don't let them get you down. Like you said, you went 2 weeks with that. He told me there's no way that I should take any of that home because I know who I am. I know what I'm worth. And you know, I'm like, I'm really like from the neighborhood. And so, but people have a way of being able to get to you. And then at work, you don't want to take the neighborhood into your work environment. And so when he said to me, fight back gracefully, I was like, what does that mean? You know, I really had to figure out what that meant. And he was just like, this is how you handle it.
Yeah.
And after I went down and had this conversation with the ladies, nice, I didn't like the way that felt. That didn't make me feel good. And I, you know, all the stuff that people do to us and get us in trouble for, I went and expressed like, it didn't make me feel good when you said this. And, you know, they would close, we don't need to close the door because you're not gonna, you know, but I was able to attack it with grace. And I came out on top because I didn't do what they thought I was gonna do. They didn't, I didn't do none of this. I didn't talk with my hands. Did you know that bothered me when you said that? You know, I really feel like I'm in a jam right now, but I really don't know how to handle it. I'm not really sure if I'm confused or maybe I'm taking it wrong. But
What were your intentions?
What were your intentions? But the thing about it is your tone and then how you carry it.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna let from now on going forward from that conversation, I'm gonna handle you with grace.
Yeah.
You know, I can't go wrong telling somebody how something made me feel when they said it. And this young lady said, this is good. Thank you for the conversation. It's right on time for me. Hey, whatever position you're going for, I need a niece, go for it. And they've given you the tools on how to navigate, get the money that you need. I'm going to give you Kiana's, if you need it, we're going to give you Kiana's information. More companies should offer diversity training. The company that I'm currently with, they offer training. And you can't get through without having the diversity training. I'm not sure if everybody takes it as seriously, but I do. When I'm looking at those pictures and those different scenarios and all the things that we're not supposed to get caught up with, I take it serious. I'm not sure if everybody else does, but And she said, attack it with grace. That's good. That's a good one. So I don't know. We're gonna go by my husband giving me the time. So we got Ed in here, y'all. Y'all say hi to Uncle Ed. I just wanted to kind of go over with you really quick. I know you started a nonprofit and you're the executive director of a nonprofit. I'm gonna let you go ahead and talk about why you chose to do your nonprofit. I read your bio and there were some of these reasons on why you started your nonprofit. Can you tell people about your nonprofit?
Yes, so I have a nonprofit called Self-Esteem, and it was founded in 2014. And our mission is to really build the self-esteem of young girls and train them for STEM education in STEM career pathways.
What is STEM?
So STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And the reason why I did this is because I was tired of being the only one in my math and physics classes, as well as tired of being the only one on my company's history or in my department's structure. And so through my experience of going from high school to college, I had professors who simply failed me because I was the only one that looked like me in the classroom. So for me, I wanted to go and reach back and to ensure that these young girls had the same opportunities that I had, because STEM and the tech fields pay, 2 times or 3 times the national wage average. So it's really an opportunity for you to level up and build wealth or build a legacy for your family. So I just wanted to make sure we had access to that. And one of the key things that we promote or try to combat is through advocacy and always encouraging our girls to advocate. Kiana and I, we talk about this all the time because I know in some of the rooms that she sits in and some of the meetings, we're seeing that we're thinking that somebody else is going to do the advocate work and we're afraid to speak up. But if I don't say anything, one thing I want to encourage all women or anybody listening to this is to advocate and speak up for yourself no matter what. You are not going to be shot. Your life is not going to be threatened. And yeah, that's just, you have to put it in that extreme and say, I really need to advocate for myself.
And that starts young. I remember teaching my daughter, like, in growing up in school, like, if you don't think you deserve that grade or you think they missed your assignments, there's a way that you need to go and advocate for yourself. And so even today, she's still in school, she fights for everything. Anything she thinks that's an injustice or somebody's not treating her right, but the way she does it is admiring. And I was like, you want me to go beat them up right quick? And she's like, no, Mom, I got this. And so she was even had the director, they was on her because she was able to advocate for herself. It didn't feel good. And so we're gonna close out. We have 3 minutes. Let's close out with something positive. What do you want to leave with the people? And I'll go ahead and start with you.
Okay, so I think what I would want to leave is take what you learned today, take the other skills and tips that you've heard from other people, and make sure that you're paying it forward. So, we can talk about this amongst ourselves and not share it with others, but there are others that were in similar situations that we were in, not knowing how to navigate.
Right.
And I think it's very important for us to be vocal with others and share these tips so that they're not having to, experience this by trial by error like we have.
Mm-hmm.
So, take these tips, implement them, share them with others, discuss them with others, and really, be advocates of others as well. All right.
Yeah, for me, it's really just encouraging people to speak up and just really try to fight some of those feelings of maybe imposter syndrome. And I always try to make it extreme to give me the courage to speak up and literally say, hey, I'm not in a situation where I'm going to be physically attacked. There are situations in other parts of the world where for women speaking up and advocating for themselves, it can be a life or death situation. And since I don't have that, I owe it to myself to just really be my own advocate because I am not going to die from it. The best thing is you know where you fit within the company, how they view you. Are they going to support you? Are they going to listen to you? So it really gives you the clear signal of how does my team or maybe my boss value.
And so with your program, it's for girls, right?
Yes.
And what are the ages?
So the program is for young girls ages 7 to 17, primarily in the Bay Area.
And so how do they find your organization?
You can go on our website at www.selfestem.org, and that's SELFESTEM.org.
Okay, that's good. Okay, Miss Kiana.
I guess to close out, two things. We didn't really touch much on like entrepreneurship. I know there's been like a lot of talks between like working in corporate or just being your own boss. That's like the new thing is being your own boss. I think both lanes are fine. In order to acquire generational wealth, we need different lanes, different streams of income. So whether you choose to go the entrepreneur route or the corporate route, work it, become a subject matter expert at whatever you do, figure out who's the best of the best and mimic those people. And just, continue to every day look to like level up and continue to get to the next level.
That's good. And I could say I'm doing both. I'm corporate and an entrepreneur, so I'm trying to make sure. But had I not been in corporate, a lot of stuff that I'm doing as a businesswoman, I wouldn't be as successful because I understand what it is to be professional. I understand what it is to cater to my clients. I understand that my clients, they are my business. And I can't just write them off or treat them any kind of way because that's my business. So it's a lot of things that the diversity, it's everything that I learned in corporate, I try to bring that into my personal business. So a lot of times it's like trial and error. They say, people always say Black people business is not the most professional. I can say what I've learned in corporate, I'm able to use in my personal business. So we do appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. I definitely feels good to be back. I appreciate you ladies joining me tonight. Oh, and this episode is sponsored by Tip Top Shape. It's sponsored by Tip Top Shape. I should have said it earlier, but I am the owner of Tip Top Shape Boot Camp, which is located in Oakland, downtown Oakland. We're in the beautiful building that we do everything in here. So we're gonna have a party in here probably next week, but come where everybody is somebody at Tip Top Shape. It doesn't matter what your fitness level is. We have space for you. We have online and in-person training. We do make sure that we mask up, we sanitize, we're indoors, outdoors, and we do have a variety of work boot camps available to everybody. So if you guys want to be a part of Tip Top Shape, you can find us at www.ttshape.com, www.tomtomshape.com, or you can find us on Instagram at Tip Top Shape with the underscore. Tip Top Shape with the underscore. And we again make sure you guys like and subscribe to this page because you never know what I might have going on or what I'm giving away or what information you may have an opportunity to learn from us. But again, it's Friday night. I'm gonna let you guys get back to your happy hour, but we do appreciate you guys tuning in. So we thank you from Samantha Wise Words, and we're gonna leave y'all out of here. Y'all say bye to the people. See y'all later.